America. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, both in Iowa and in your home state. Chairman Behnam, thank you very much for the work that the CFTC and your team has done in this area. We're unique in the sense I get to sit on both the Ag Committee here as well as the Financial Services Committee across the way here. A lot of exciting overlap, but also I think everyone from my farmers with a bushel of corn to my small business owners with the desire to be pioneers in the digital asset space are looking for guidance. And CFTC has been, I think, an open place for innovation and stabilization to really take root. And so I want to compliment you, first of all, on the work that you guys have done there. I also recognize that you have a large portfolio. So we've received some feedback from a number of stakeholders regarding some downstream impacts of Basel III and its proposal in the derivative markets and ultimately the end user. In a number of ways, this has been a challenge. In fact, working with the chairman here, we have called out some real flaws that we see and emphasized the negative impacts that this proposal would have on the agricultural community specifically. So, Chairman Thompson, what I'd like to do is submit this letter for the record with the folks who have signed on with us.
Without objection.
So first, Chairman Behnam, the future commissions market, our FCMs, provide farmers with access to critical parts of the market. The FCM consolidation is occurring at alarming rates. I know you've seen this chart. My farmers have certainly seen this chart. Folks not just inside Iowa, but across the country are facing this, which further decreases our growers' ability to access markets. Talk to us a little bit about how Basel will exacerbate this issue.
Congressman, thanks. And I'll just sort of caveat that this could be a significant issue. As you point out, this chart resonates very much with us. I said earlier this morning that we've seen a significant decrease in the number of FCMs over the past 20 years from 177 to just 64. And at the same time, we've seen a huge growth in customer segregated money being held by fewer FCMs, from $88 billion to $500 billion over 20 years. So huge decrease in FCMs, huge growth in the amount of money being held by fewer FCMs. Ultimately, with historically a low interest rate environment and a more competitive landscape, FCM numbers have reduced over time. Obviously, the interest rate environment is changing, but I don't necessarily think that's going to change the dynamic of new FCMs coming into place. There are huge economies of scales and barriers to entry, and we sort of live with what we have. My happiness or my content would be, at a minimum, staying in this range. I don't want to see this continued pattern of reduction of FCMs. Ultimately, as you would imagine with any business on the sort of P&L side or a balance sheet side, if there are more charges, more costs, it's going to create more impediments, possibly being passed through end users, farmers, ranchers, energy producers. I think the larger policy issue, one that I've spoken with members of the federal board about, my staff has with them as well, and other prudential regulators, is we have to think about the balancing act of incentivizing and disincentivizing clearing. Clearing is a core component of the G20 reforms from 2009 and the Dodd-Frank Act. We know that it mutualizes risk, it reduces risk, it's a risk-reducing feature.
Right. Would agree.
The SEC has just finalized a rule on clearing treasuries. We mandated clearing swaps, building off of clearing futures, which has been a component of the futures market for decades. Point being is we all agree clearing is a positive thing. It's a good thing for market risk, for market stability. We want to make sure any new prudential rules, I speak very confidently that capital is a core component of financial regulation and good financial regulation, but it has to be calibrated appropriately so we're incentivizing clearing and not disincentivizing, because ultimately that's going to reduce risk.
Chairman, same page. I appreciate your leadership on it. In the sake of time, you've answered a number of these things. I would just encourage you to continue to work with your partners, particularly on the Fed, to emphasize how important that is as well. I want to switch very quickly. Proud to support FIT 21. We've talked a lot about that today. It's an area that continues to be just a growth opportunity. Prometheum recently announced its intention to custody Ether. I am concerned that the SEC will use this as an opportunity to circumvent Congress and even the CFTC in this space to further confuse participants who are already in the field. So I know I've asked you this before, but I want, given the reports, do you still believe Ether falls into that commodity area where CFTC can really allow digital assets like this to take root and be successful?
Yes.
With a follow-up then, until FIT 21 becomes law, what can the CFTC do to continue to bring clarity to this spot? I know I have 3 seconds left. Shoot.
Well, ultimately, it goes down to the contracts that are listed on an exchange. You know, we don't do this without analysis, legal analysis, policy analysis. So as the Bitcoin futures contracts were listed in 2017, and then the Ether futures contracts were listed in 2020, we work closely with fellow regulators, but we also do the analysis internally about the underlying asset, whether it's a physical commodity, whether it's interest rate, currency, or credit product, or a digital asset. We do the analysis under the Commodity Exchange Act. We work with the exchanges, and we ensure that what they are listing, above all else, is a commodity.
Please continue that until FIT 21 becomes law, and then let's collectively work not only bipartisan on this, but with our private sector and our agencies across the board. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the grace. I yield back the remainder of my time.
Gentleman yields back. As we prepare to close here on a